Willie D Live.
It's Willie D, y'all, back with another episode of information and instructions to help you navigate through this wild, crazy, beautiful world. In the studio, she is the running mate for Robert F. Kennedy Jr.'s presidential independent campaign. And she's also a leader in the world of technology. She brought backup with her. Boy, she brought backup for real this time. Ladies and gentlemen, best-selling author and political consultant for the Kennedy 24 campaign, Angela King is in the building. Thank you, ladies. Thanks for coming on the show.
Thank you, Willie.
Praises in order. Happy Mother's Day.
Thank you very much.
So you have 5 kids, right?
I do.
5?
5.
And you have 1 kid?
I have 1.
Right. How is that, like, being out on the road campaigning and raising kids at the same time? And I know your kids are
Well, for
older.
me, they're all grown, so
Yeah.
I don't have those issues.
But just
anymore,
having kids, though, but you still have some type of, you got to stay connected, right?
Well, of course, we always stay connected to our children, even in the afterlife. And for me, it's a little easier now because I don't have to worry about getting anybody up or taking them to school, and I don't have to pick anybody up and take them to the doctor. They're pretty much, self-sufficient. In fact, I just got a Zelle notification. One of them sent me some money, so I'm on the other side of parenting.
Oh, you good.
Yeah, I'm good, but I know Nicole's baby is still pretty young.
She's 5.5.
Right.
And
Echo.
Yeah, little Echo.
Yeah.
And I have her dad and I. We separated a few years ago, and so when I'm home with her, I'm work from home. It's half the time, and then when she's with her dad, I'm out on the campaign trail, and so my daughter knows. We always do this tradition. We put our hands on our heart, and we tell each other that we're in each other's hearts, and then we go out there, and I go out there, and part of the reason why I'm part of this campaign is because of her.
Mm-hmm. What does she think about this, though? Mommy being on TV all the time.
She watched my live stream of my announcement speech, and she was cheering and giggling and just was so happy to see me up on the screen. And, one of the reasons I'm doing this is so much about this campaign is for mom and kids. Mm-hmm. Healthy moms, healthy kids. We might be the first presidential candidate team who is making that really a top priority for the campaign is the health of children. We have one of the highest chronic disease rates in the world, highest chronic disease rates among children in the developed world. It doesn't make any sense. We're a very wealthy country. My daughter's been personally impacted with chronic health issues, which is how I found out about Bobby Kennedy. He runs a group called Children's Health Defense and has spent 40 years of his career fighting corporations that hurt our families. They hurt our families either through polluting our waterways or for putting out products onto the market that are unsafe. And so he's been just such a champion for moms across the United States, moms who have been told by the medical system that you don't know what you're talking about, and there's something about maternal intuition. And I think moms across this country realize right now we need something different. And so, my daughter and I have a very, very deep connection, and she's a fighting spirit, and I'm just grateful to be her mom doing this work.
How did we get here with you being the running mate for Rob? Because I hope he's okay with me calling him Rob. But how did we get here? Because, he bowed out of the primaries, the Democratic primaries back in October. And I know that you was hot about that. You ain't like that. Mm-hmm. And you was like, I ain't supporting you no more. I'm out. I'm done. I'm done with you, man. And then, come 2024, you at the top of the list, and you get nominated to be his running mate. How did the switch happen? What gave you a change of heart?
Well, when he went to go run as an independent, so the story in America is that independents are spoilers. They're typically spoilers for the Democratic candidate. Historically, that's been the case if you look at Perot and Nader. And as a result, all of these rules now have been passed state by state that make it even harder to get on the ballot in those states. So I was watching him go independent thinking, oh gosh, I can't throw my weight behind a spoiler candidate. And so that was at the end of 2023. Come January, February 2024, I'm looking around and I'm like, this guy's doing way, way, way better with popular opinion than I thought he would running as an independent. People are still coming out for him. And I was watching the numbers and hearing it and hearing, in these personal pockets around me that there's a lot more support for him than I imagined at the beginning of this year. So then in February, leading up to the Super Bowl, someone reached out and said, do you want to help us get Bobby a Super Bowl ad? And I said, sure. I think this is a really interesting test, because he was polling, some polls he was already polling over 10%. Very impressive for an independent candidate. And Super Bowl is one of our most watched events, live events, 130 million viewers. Most Americans in February 2024 didn't know he was even running as an independent. So I figured, okay, I'm going to invest in this ad. And if he starts polling in the upper double digits, or, around 15 to 20% would be very good on some of the polls. And if his favorability rating goes up by a certain amount, then this is real. We're on. So I put together some funds, helped buy him that spot through a PAC. I was working with American Values PAC at that time. And the first ad we wanted to run got rejected because of various issues. So then the PAC comes back to me 36 hours before the ad is due, and they say, we know you just paid for this ad, but we can't use it. Now we have no ad. Can you help us create a Super Bowl ad in 36 hours? And I was like, let me call some friends. Right. So I called some friends, got it out there. 130 million people watched this ad. Next thing I know, Fox releases a poll on favorability, and he's beating Trump and Biden in favorability across the United States.
Yep.
And I'm like, all right, we're on. This
Game
is something.
on. Yep.
That's what, and it costs money to run these campaigns, because from what I understand, correct me if I'm wrong, I got the source right here so I can say this. $4 million? That's what that ad cost?
$7
million. How much of that money was yours?
4.
That's where I get the number 4 from then.
Yeah.
$4 million. So $7 million for a Super Bowl campaign ad. And you got your money's worth, right?
I think it was probably one of the most best spent political spending I've done to date.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. And this brings me, talking about the independent party, it brings me to Angela King. Because, Angela has been known in the past to be a very strong Trump supporter.
Yes.
And so when I heard that you were involved in the Robert Kennedy campaign, I was like, huh?
Yeah.
Like, how did that happen?
Well, it's a long story. For one, everybody knows that I'm very serious about pro-life work and helping to eradicate the Black maternal health crisis. That's just something that's very dear to me. And to be frankly honest, not so much as Trump, but what I recognized in the Republican Party was that they were pro-life, but they weren't pro-Black. And because my focus was saving Black life and eradicating the Black maternal health crisis, it was very hard for me to get a lot of support from that side. I had put out an invite for President Trump to stop by our pregnancy home in the West End of Atlanta. And I was told by his senior advisor, who is Black just like us, that I can't expect him to come sit on the sofa. And my feelings were hurt because I run with these people, and
you rolled
we
for
were
him.
I,
was
I
riding.
did, but he did a lot for me too.
Yeah. Well,
If we're going to be honest, he gave me a full unconditional pardon. But not only that, I ran for office too. He endorsed my campaign. He made it illegal for them to chain women to the bed because of my personal story. And I walked a listing of 100 names of people that I felt deserved pardons outside of myself. And I walked that list in directly to him. And 60% of those people received a pardon, including Kwame Kilpatrick, who was the former mayor of Detroit. So I had a lot of respect for Trump, but I didn't have the type of relationship with Trump that I actually have with Bobby. And Bobby and I were actually friends before he announced his run. And I came into contact with Bobby during COVID. A friend of mine, Dr. Simone Gold, and America's Frontline Doctors, had contacted me and my criminal justice reform organization. And they say, Angela, we want to fund you to take us into Black communities so we can get the message out about what's going on with these vaccines, because all of the communication lines were being cut. They were being censored on YouTube. They were being censored on social media. They were being labeled as the Disinformation 12 by all of the news outlets. And medical apartheid had always been my thing. I knew that there had always been a specific target and attack on Black life when it just is what it is. If it's AIDS, if it's COVID, if it's abortion, if it's mass incarceration, for some reason it always disproportionately impacts our community. And I met Bobby through that, bringing those doctors in and taking them from city to city to give our community this information. And when I met him, he was always very humble and genuine. He gave me his phone number anytime I called him to ask about some information, or I asked him to educate our community on something. He was always willing to do it. So when he ran as a Democrat, I was still a Republican, and I'm like, there's no way I'm going to support a Democrat. But I did put up a post, and I said that if there was ever any Democrat that I would support, that it would be Robert F. Kennedy Jr. And then he made the announcement that he was going independent. And I had already been contemplating going independent anyway, because I was tired of being blocked from the work that I needed to do in my community. Like, I'm for my people, but I go in and they don't see me. All they see is my affiliation with Trump. So it was beginning to harm the real work that I needed to do, because even after the presidency is over, they only get 4 years. I still have work that I have to do in the community. And so Bobby put up a post that he was coming to Atlanta. I think he was going to Morehouse. And I just picked up the phone and I called him. I said, Bobby, I said, I know you're pro-choice. I said, and you know that I'm pro-life. I said, but I've got this pregnancy home here. I said, and we're struggling. I said, but would you just come by and just check us out and look at the work that we do? And he said, of course I will. And he came by and he sat on our sofa and he sat there for an hour. And when he left, he had a different perspective. And he asked me if I would join his campaign. And I'm here.
Yeah. That's beautiful. You mentioned pro-life. You mentioned pro-black. You said that the Republican Party is pro-life, but they're not pro-black. How do you convey to Americans that being pro-black is actually being pro-American?
Well, I don't think it's for all Americans to understand our fight, because they can't understand our struggle. They don't know where we come from. And I guess I just learned that being able to work on the other side and look at different perspectives. Like, for instance, I was a Republican and rolling with Trump them during the time that we were experiencing Black Lives Matter. And what they're saying to me is, Angela, how can Black Lives Matter when y'all the first ones in line at the abortion clinic, right? Because Black life begins in the womb. So I just started to understand and analyze their perspectives. And I'm not saying that all of them are actually wrong, because we have to value us first before we can demand that anybody else values us. But I didn't put a demand on them to value Black life. That was my thing, right? I just wanted the support, because my thing is, don't use us for talking points, right? It's good for you all to get up and talk about how many Black women having abortions, how many Black babies are being aborted. Okay, that's fine. But what are we going to do about it? And that was the issue for me, that everybody wanted to talk about it and nobody wanted to do anything about it. And when I stepped out to do something about it, Our first location was completely burned to the ground across the street from Warnock's church. And I begged for help. Like, I reached out to all of my top Republican friends. My godmother did, and nobody had any interest to help us. And then I realized, I said, I watched you guys raise $2.5 million for Kyle Rittenhouse in one day for ending life, even though he was in the right. But they raised $2.5 million for Kyle Rittenhouse ending life. And here I am over here saving life. And our GoFundMe raised $18,000. And with that $18,000, I was able to go get a home, and I was able to start this project. And it's like Bobby came by. I got stuck in this political fight, people that were supporting us. When Bobby came by, they were upset that he came by and withdrew their support and kind of just left me holding the bag. And it just made me realize that people aren't really pro-life, they're pro-party. Because we get caught up in the fight of politics and forget about the people that actually need the help. And helping women and children shouldn't even be political. It should just be the right thing to do.
Yep.
Well, yeah, exactly. And speaking on people that talk about how can you be, how can Black Lives matter when Black people are the first ones in line for abortion? How can Black Lives matter when you have this Black people killing each other? Right. Well, two things can be true at the same time. They act like it can't when it involves us. Everybody else gets it. Everybody else knows that you got good and you got bad in every single group. We know that. We know that. But when it comes to Black folks, it just seems like some people like to just make believe that we're some type of monolith, which we're not. 43% of Americans identify as independents now. Mm-hmm. So I'm wondering, how good do you think your chances are at actually winning? Because in the past, in the independent party, let's keep it real, was kind of like a joke. It was like, we're just going to run, they're just there to run interference.
Yep.
Now, with 43% of Americans identifying as independents,
I think it might.
What do you think your chances are? It could be higher than that, right?
Higher than that because she just left the Republican Party. I just left the Democratic Party in a very public way. I mean, both of us left our parties in a very, very public way. I think there's a lot more of us that are doing that in this election in particular. We just had this great panel here, thanks to Angela, and there's a gentleman on the panel, pointing out that both parties seem like the party for the elites now. It used to be that the Republican Party we'd think was the party of the elites, and the Democrat Party was the party for the people and the party for compassion. But that's not what I've seen over the last
and what I've
8
seen
years.
And what I've seen is, and because I do a lot of work in the community. And there was a time when I would be faced with a lot of resistance when I talk about bringing certain political people to our community to have conversations or whatever. And in this independent space, I see that people in our community are much more open and much more willing to listen. And from my personal experience, I kind of enjoy being able to sit at the table with people that don't all have the same ideas with me,
amazing.
Because we're diverse. America is diverse. And that's what America is about. All of us coming together, whether we agree or not on everything. But the one thing that we do agree on is we all want what's best for our country, and America should represent all of us, not just one particular group. And I think that's why the Independent Party is going to win this particular election.
I mean, amen to that. We've been able to have conversations that you could never have across the two-party system.
Yeah.
And, for the first time in my life, I've realized we're in this generation where, these things that have been politicized, like abortion, are being politicized for talking points and no other reason than for politics and for actually doing the work of figuring out how to best serve the community.
Right.
Well, you beat me to the punch, because I was going to ask you, what is your stance on abortion? How do you feel?
Yeah. Part of the thing about talking about abortion is that we've had a lot of these white male leaders talking about it and leading the discussion, or people who don't understand the journey of being a mother talking about abortion in the abstract. And so I've come into the arena as a mother to talk about my stance on abortion personally. And, my stance is carrying a child is the most wonderful, sacred gift. Bringing new life into this world is transformative. We were just at a maternal home here in Houston where 3 babies who would these moms oftentimes are pushed to choose abortion because they don't have the means immediately to support having a child in that moment. But these maternal homes give a choice. So let's actually talk about choice, right? If I'm pro-choice, I want, the option for mothers who can't afford in that moment to have a baby, a choice to have that baby if they want to have that baby in that moment, and not be courted by an abortion clinic or courted by these government institutions saying, well, you're pregnant, you're not in means to have a child, so here's your abortion clinic. I think that we have to evolve our stance on choice right now. And, as a woman, and we're talking about these term limits, like everything in the conversation stuck on term limits for abortion. And I think let's just talk about it practically. Like, I've had, I'll share with you guys, like, I've had 2 miscarriages, one at 1 month and one at 3 months. And I'll tell you, the one at 3 months was way harder than the one at 1 month. Mm-hmm. And, every moment that goes by that baby is growing inside of you, we have to keep in mind that matters. Like, term limits do matter. And we have to live in a world in which we evolve systems that really actually increase choice for the mother. If a woman feels like their only choice is abortion, that's not pro-choice. I'm sorry, nothing about that is pro-choice.
Right. Right. And I think for me, for our community, now it's kind of like this notion, if you're poor, you're in poverty, then you don't need to have a baby, you need to have an abortion. But a lot of us grew up poor and in poverty. And not only did a lot of us grow up poor and in poverty, but a lot of us made it out of poverty. And that's not the side of the story that we're telling. And poverty actually created us, right? It created our mindsets, right? It made us be appreciative for certain things, that we weren't just born, with a spoon in our mouth. So, poverty is not always a bad thing, because a lot of us made it out of poverty. So for me, I was just tired of the excuse that a woman needs to abort because she's poor, because she can't afford to keep the baby. So coming into this space with Bobby and Nicole, and Bobby, who will let you know he's pro-choice, I think I won by helping them understand, right, that choosing to keep the baby is also a choice. And why is there so much funding going towards the termination of the baby, right? Because if the woman doesn't want the baby, she gets to go have an abortion and she's done. But if the father doesn't want the baby, he has to take care of the baby for 18 years. So my whole thing is, why are we giving so much money to a life that's not even going to be here, right? To one that's being terminated. That money should go to the woman that put her big girl panties on and say, you know what, this may be hard. I may be in it by myself, but I value the life of this kid, and I'm going to try to do everything I can to raise this child. That's where the funding should go.
What do you think about the people who are huge advocates for the death penalty, and at the same time they are advocates for not allowing for abortion
That's
for
me.
children? That's you.
I'm pro-life and I'm pro-death penalty.
Okay, so explain that to me.
So there's a difference between an innocent baby who has not committed a crime and a grown adult who has been convicted of committing a crime. So for me, for instance, my baby that I love, that I raised, that's in college right now, let's just say some type of tragedy happened and somebody took her life, right? If they don't kill him, I'm going to kill him. And Nicole probably going to be somewhere trying to buy me out of jail, but I am the type of mother that I will live and die for my children, right? There is a difference when you have someone who has made an adult choice, right, and committed a crime or taken somebody's life, than an innocent baby who hasn't even had the chance to live.
But what all of the corruption that we have going on in our government and in our court systems, when they get it wrong, how do you reconcile that?
I'm a criminal justice reform advocate, so I fight to reform our justice system, and we have gotten it wrong a lot of times. But you and I know sometimes they get it right, and I've lost people to murder. The father of my children was just recently murdered in 2021. Did 9 years in the feds, came home, was viciously murdered after only being home for a year. 3 days later, I'm on Dr. Phil, and his son is telling me that he's now a woman. Like, it's important for these black men to be in their children's lives. So I think that we do have some people we need to take off of the streets. And if this is just my personal opinion, I'm not speaking for Nicole, and I'm not speaking for Bobby, nor am I speaking for the campaign. This is me. But, we have horrible crimes that take place against children. We have children out here being raped, sodomized, murder, stuff like that. I think it's levels to it. But I do think that we all need to understand that there is a difference. You can't, innocent babies get a death penalty every time there's an abortion that takes place. And what crime have they committed?
Yeah, I totally get your side of the story. But at the same time, when I see so many people being exonerated throughout the years that's sitting on death row, and they find out that this person was totally innocent. And sometimes they actually go through the process of killing people, and the evidence is resoundingly clear that that person is innocent, just like what happened with Gary Graham, Shaka Sankofa, that was killed in Huntsville. Those people knew that man didn't commit that crime, but they killed him because he committed crimes in the past.
And I think we got to try to look at those on case-by-case basis. But just like I know, that there are some people that do bad things in this world, unfortunately.
I've had the pleasure of working in justice reform since 2015. I'm a California barred attorney, and I have a position at Stanford Law School. It's a Stanford Law School and Stanford Computer Science.
Your alma mater. You graduated Stanford and Santa Clara, right?
So I did law school at Santa Clara Law School, and then I was actually hired to go on faculty at Stanford.
Okay, gotcha.
So I'm still very much affiliated, and in 2015 I had the opportunity it was my first introduction to working in the criminal justice system. I was asked by the San Francisco DA's office to look at several thousand police records, because the police responsible for these arrests, many of these individuals were now incarcerated that they had arrested, but the police officers were found in a text messaging scandal, and they were 13 of them, and they were all texting each other just blatantly prejudicial and blatantly racist messages. And you have to remember, our criminal justice system is largely broken because the infrastructure is broken. The way that, court records are handled, moved around, it's a very, very old, slow, and broken system. Our penal system is woefully outdated and inefficient. People wait way too long to get their cases heard and seen. Access to real lawyers that are going to really step up and defend with incredible aptitude. Those lawyers are few and far between. And as a result, we have, a criminal justice system that is backed up with non-violent offenders who should not be in the system at all. And so 2015, I had kind of a coming home moment. I'm from Oakland, California. People that I've grown up with have had ins and outs with the system. And I felt it was a duty to do pro bono work in the space. And so, as a technologist, we went through all these records to try to start identifying if we could detect bias in how police were out there operating. And as a result, it really snowballed. And if you have to remember, in 2015, no one was paying attention to our prison system and our criminal justice system. And BLM made it, national headline news. But we've all known there's been problems with it for a really long time. And my interests also has snowballed over the years, and it's resulted in me understanding that, we can spend all this time in parts of the systems trying to make it more efficient and trying to make it more fair. Of course, we have to do that, but the system itself is based upon part of this, I call it the ruthlessness of the American psyche. And Carl Jung actually coined that term during his visit in 1912 to the United States. Carl Jung invented how we think about psychology today, and his diagnosis of America was that this is a country whose psyche just has this unbearable, heavy ruthlessness to it, the inability to see nuance, the inability to bring humanity into things, the individual being disconnected from their ancestry and acting, in their role without remembering who they are, where they came from. And, as a result, I've evolved my thinking around the criminal justice system. I used to think the DAs were the problem. And so I would try to find DAs that could understand both the plight of, the people, but also the plight of the police, because we want balance. What we want is to restore balance. Right now, our entire system is completely out of balance. You have the Republicans calling for total police immunity. That's insane. We have to hold our police accountable. If they're shooting people they shouldn't be shooting, and killing people they shouldn't be killing. And then on the other hand, we have defund the police. People who want to disband entire police departments across country. This is going to break this. It is breaking this country. We got to look and come back to this middle ground of, yes, let's make our system fair, but let's address what's at the root cause of it. And it's the things that, this is where Angela and I find so much agreement. And this is where I think if we give people the opportunity, we'll come together and understand the issue is poverty. It's negligence of young people. It's the lack of opportunity from the get-go, the school-age children. Look at what happened during the lockdown. I oftentimes say COVID-19 was our country's truth serum. It brought us truth because we saw all of this come to light. Yep. We saw our lowest communities get beat down even harder, and we saw the government completely overlooking those needs. And so this is where, I think this has nothing to do with politics. It has to do everything with us remembering as a country that the civil rights movement took us so far. Bobby's uncle and Bobby's dad were leaders during that time, and they were murdered for trying to heal the American psyche.
And not just them. You have to remember the King-Kennedy family relationship, because the Kings were murdered as well for the same thing, and they stood together. The Kennedys and the Kings were very, very close in the fight for civil rights, and both families were tragically murdered.
Paid the ultimate price.
Taking a stand to fix what was broken in this country.
Which brings me to my point.
Yeah.
Why is it that nothing seems to really change? Why is it that we seem to be more and more desperate to just live? If you take a poll right now, most people will say that they are in more fear today than they were 5 years ago, 10 years ago, 20 years ago. Why is that every year we get more security, higher gates, bigger guns, more police officers, and it's just on and on and on and on and on. And I'll tell you why I think that is true. It is because evil people are at the very top in all of these industries across America. And I'm not just talking law enforcement, the judicial system, and government. I'm also talking the clergy. I'm talking the art industry, the transportation industry, education. They're everywhere, even in the medical field. The evil people run it. You can get a good teacher. A good teacher can come in with some great ideas, and the students will love the teacher, just absolutely love the teacher. Best teacher the school ever had. And somehow, some way, that teacher ends up being fired or on some type of suspension because she did something or he did something that helped the kids learn better, or something that the kids loved. And then they have to jump through so many hoops when they come up with an innovative idea for the students. Yep. They have to jump through all of these hoops and things, and at the end of the day, the students are the ones who suffer the most. And they always talk about the students. Well, the schools don't even exist without the students. So shouldn't the students be the priority? But it's not, because evil people are at the top. And so the evil person, who is usually the school superintendent or the principal, is looking at that teacher that's getting all that recognition from those kids that everybody love, and they say, "Oh, I'm gonna put an end to that."
Yeah.
That's
right.
what I see.
Yeah.
I see the same thing.
It's happening to doctors too.
Yeah.
Doctors
It's
that
happening
speak
everywhere.
out.
It's happening everywhere.
Doctors that speak out are being murdered.
Yeah.
Natural herbalists are being murdered.
Yeah.
These people are trying to make the world a better place, trying to get us off these drugs, and they murder them, and then we as a society kind of just take it. We all know what happened.
And
we see what's happening.
I want to say this.
Let me say this too.
Okay.
The Boeing guy. I know you heard about that.
The second one just got killed.
They just killed another guy who worked for Boeing because he was a whistleblower. These are people trying to save our lives, and they get murdered. Now we know where that's coming. Look, businessmen and politicians run the world. So
a lot of them are
whatever go
sociopaths.
down, if it go down and it's wicked on a level that's unexplainable, a businessman or a politician is behind it.
I knew it was serious when COVID hit and they blocked the hashtag natural immunity all across social media, because people were actually trying to put out information about natural ways that you could heal yourself, and they literally blocked the hashtag natural immunity on all social media platforms. That's when I knew it was real.
And why would they do
I
that?
knew that.
Why would they do that?
The same reason they just banned TikTok.
Yeah.
I was going to ask you about that. I was going to ask Nicole about that, actually, since Nicole is the technological expert. What do you think about the banning of TikTok?
Sitting in Silicon Valley, and especially around October 7th, October 8th, there was a lot of sensitivity to TikTok being used for propaganda purposes. And the concern that was made to Congress, which was powerful enough to sway them to vote to ban TikTok, was that, these were outside forces, possibly China or who else knows, that are using TikTok to sway and influence the American public. And then the argument is, well, we don't allow, foreign entities to own our national news networks. Why would we allow them to own TikTok, where many of our children are getting their news? So if you ask the average 16-year-old where they're getting information, it's typically on TikTok. So they made a very, very strong argument, had several hearings, and it was very powerful. And you have to understand, this is happening now in a larger movement of infringements on our Constitution happening and being normalized as well. So censorship during the pandemic, these are First Amendment interferences. The right to free speech is our First Amendment to the Bill of Rights, because it's foundational to what we believe in is the American experience for freedom. And that was normalized during the pandemic, that these private platforms could censor information. And so now we're already in this culture now that says, well, that's not a big deal. FISA, went after the Fourth Amendment. That's the Foreign Intelligence Act. And then, they were like, well, we need to have warrants, because the Fourth Amendment says we need to have warrants if the government's going to go in and look at your personal data. And Congress, again, said, no, the government's going to be able to access your data if there's suspicion, and we're not going to, ask for a warrant. So we're in a slip right now, a fast slip. And TikTok, within the context of this slip, I believe is very, very risky to ban a platform that so many Americans view as a platform for free speech. just like X, and hand over that to the federal government to control. And so we've got two competing things right now, two what I believe are very, very strong arguments. One, an argument for security of outside influence influencing our children to think, do, or feel certain things. And then we have the First Amendment. So this is the kind of situation that our Supreme Court was really designed to adjudicate. But right now we have the legislature kind of, preemptively adjudicating it. And that's scary. We've seen that now multiple times. And this is a direct infringement on our Constitution by our Congress. And we have to be mindful. We have to be vigilant. This is a moment in history in which vigilance is very much called for.
Yeah, absolutely. And here's the reason why they banned TikTok. They wanted to get rid of the competition. See, it's cool when they do it.
It's a problem when we do it.
It's a problem when we do it. And that's what TikTok is over there saying. Because let's face it, Facebook and all the rest of the platforms, they do the same thing that TikTok is doing. The only difference is the government can't control them. They can't go in and say, yo, give us that information or you can get on up out of here. See, that's why they want to get rid of TikTok, because they can't do that to TikTok. They can't eavesdrop when they feel like it, because TikTok is not owned by a U.S. company.
And I've experienced censorship on Facebook and X. I lost both of my accounts. Like, even on X, I had an account with 1 million followers and lost that account because I wouldn't agree to call my son who transitioned a woman, right? And they took that account away. Even when I was running for office, anytime I would mention something about my campaign, I get maybe 1,000 or 2,000 views. But if I put a video out about something that's going on in the hood,
something
or a rap
ignorant,
concert or something ignorant, I'm getting hundreds of thousands of views. It was just so obvious. Anytime I promote, still to this day on Instagram or anything about something that we're doing in the campaign,
the campaign,
it gets deleted.
It has been
flagged.
so censored.
I'm flagged.
Yeah.
Wait a minute. You telling me that X, the company that used to be Twitter, with the guy at the head that's supposed to bring on freedom of speech and let it ring from the mountaintops, censored you? Like, trying to suppress
since he's got it back, they deleted my account prior to him taking over X. So since he's had X, I've applied to get that account back about 200 times, and I've been ignored. And they still won't give me my account back. But Donald Trump got his back like that. And didn't want it and won't even use it. And I think that's probably why Elon's about to come support Bobby, because I saw him retweet Bobby. So thanks, Donald, for ignoring Elon.
Okay. Nicole, we were talking about digital privacy.
Yeah.
How do you intend to address digital privacy and security? Should you hit the winning ticket? I mean, what would you do about that?
Well, we're really lucky right now because, and I'm an eternal optimist, and I still believe in the power of innovation to overcome these challenges. And we're lucky that where innovation is right now, it's already been thinking about this for about 15 years. And the advent of the blockchain has given us a completely different way of architecting data. The legacy way of architecting data is that the corporation would have a database, and if you were engaging in that corporation's tool, like Facebook or Google, your information would all be on and owned by the database of that corporation. But something's happening now because of the way that the blockchain allows us to distribute where that data sits and how people connect to that data and those services that are built on the blockchain. This means that we can secure our data, our own personal data, ourselves, while still engaging on these services and platforms. It's still early, but that is the future of the architecture of the internet over the next 10, 20, 30 years. I really think that this moment that we're sitting in right now is a huge inflection point. We're stuck between the future of medicine, the future of free speech, the future of the internet, and we've worn out all of these other systems. They're wearing themselves out. How we think about pathogens, how we think about the role of government and executive function, we're really at this low point. And we've exacerbated what these old models can do for us while still maintaining the sovereignty and agency we all want in this country. And now we're going to burst through this moment with new leadership, new minds, new energy. This old guard is all, Biden, his generation, they're going to pass on, and this new group of innovators. And we have the pleasure of being around them all. They're like a huge part of this campaign. There's a reason why this campaign has done so much with so little. We're like the scrappiest campaign of all time financially. No corporate dollars. So what's happening is that as all of these new platforms, these new architectures emerge, these new ways of thinking, these new ways of connecting, these new ways of overcoming the polarity are all emerging. We just have to stick together and not let them quash us.
And stop the canceling, right? Mm-hmm. That's the thing about it. Like, I realize, like, even in my family, we don't all agree politically, but I'm not going to walk away from my family. I'm not going to hate my family for not agreeing with me. American politics have always, or should have always, been bipartisan and should never be partisan. And what we're experiencing with the two-party system is partisan politics. And they're so busy fighting each other that they can't get work done for the people, right? For some reason, all of the funding is going to Ukraine. I don't know what that's about. But our own American people are being overlooked while borders are being open, because everything right now is political and nothing is about the people.
And they've become desperate.
Yep.
I mean, look at their behavior right now. Look at how they're looking at political strategy. Let's open our borders, and just keep them open and flood our most vulnerable communities.
And this is after I watched millions of people lose their jobs, millions of people being kicked out of school because they wanted religious exemptions from having to take a vaccine, and they lose their jobs, they lose their positions in school, and then you open up the border and none of those people are mandated to have vaccines come. It was just the weirdest thing that we just witnessed, and I think that all of us are to a point where we're like, no more.
Yeah.
No more.
Nicole, I want to double back about when we was talking about technology.
Yeah.
And innovation. You mentioned innovation.
Mm-hmm.
As a prominent activist or advocate for innovation and technology, how do you plan to bridge the gap between technological advancements and equity access to those resources, especially in communities that have been marginalized?
The number one thing is education, and now I fully believe school choice. We were talking about teachers earlier. If we have the federal government dictating that all teachers should behave and act the same, and we disenfranchise these teachers, they're not going to be able to teach cutting edge technology in their classrooms, because you can't have innovation under that kind of regulatory framework around learning. Innovation requires creativity. It requires a freedom, a flow of information to and from the children. It's allowing the children to show what their creative talents are and meeting them where they are with the technology. AI is very, very fascinating in education, because there are these platforms now that are smart enough to understand how the child is engaging with the course material, but we can't cut out the teachers as well. So there has to be a partnership in how we use these new tools in the classroom. And then, in terms of equity and access, I'm from Oakland. I was just in Oakland working to connect this company called Block, which has a whole arm to it that's all about access to technology and these tech hubs in cities, and it's education with grant dollars. Like, we have to understand the power of small business as it relates to utilizing these new technology platforms, commercial platforms that allow people to start and pop up a new business in a matter of weeks. Small businesses, community businesses, these are our tools. And we're not using them enough, and the government is completely oblivious to it. And while, we have examples of what works in these communities, government doesn't look at those examples and think to themselves, how do we contribute to making this available in these other communities outside of the Bay Area? And we've never had somebody in the White House who has been as immersed in technology as the people on this campaign and myself.
Don't say like me. We ain't never had nobody in the White House like me, man.
Never.
Go on, flex on them, Nicole.
I mean, there's been attempts to bring technologists into the White House, but it has to start from the knowledge of our leadership. Of understanding how to utilize this technology into policy, to guide policy, and to guide your appointments. I mean, when you fill up your cabinet, you got to fill up your cabinet with people that understand technology.
Right.
Yeah.
I remember watching one of those committee hearings on, and I think they were like grilling Mark Zuckerberg, and the damn people that was talking to him, all of these Congress people, they were clueless. Like, they didn't know. It's like some of them didn't even know how to. Yeah, there you go.
Mm-hmm.
Clueless or bought. Yeah, know exactly what they're doing. Playing dumb, huh? Mm-hmm. Yeah. What do you think about the comments that the governor of New York made about black children not knowing how? Did she say knowing how to spell?
She said we don't know what a computer is.
Don't know what a computer is. Did you catch those remarks? But they know what video games
are. Yeah, the governor.
Did you catch those remarks?
I actually did not. In hearing this for the first time, it sounds appalling.
Yeah, she said black kids
don't
know what
she
computers are. She
said black kids in Brooklyn, unfortunately, don't know what computers are. They just don't. And to me, I find that to be offensive, and that's another reason why I don't necessarily support the Democrat Party. I'm not saying I don't support my people that align with that party, but I don't support the Democrat leadership, because not only do they believe that we are not smart enough to know what computers are, they believe that we aren't smart enough to have an ID to know how to vote. That in itself is disrespectful, because you have to have an ID to go apply for welfare, food stamps. You got to have an ID to go to the club. You got to have an ID to cash your check. So to think that we don't have IDs, the notion that liberation comes in abortion, where every time you hear them get up on a platform and speak, it's all about the need for black women to have abortion. To me, I think that it's all disrespect, and I'm glad that our community is waking up, because you were talking about something earlier about why things aren't changing, and you made a point about evil people in leadership. But I think that a lot of the reason why things aren't changing is because we continue to do the same thing over and over again and expect different results. Mm-hmm. A lot of us have been very loyal to the Democrat Party just because that's how we was raised, right? We was just born into it. Grandma and them said we Democrats. We saw Obama. He was this black man that gave all of us hope. And that's what he left us with. The only thing we got was a track phone, right? To track everywhere that we went. And I'm not going to get into all of it, but we've been voting Democrat for 60 years? And it seems like today, are we in any better position? So now that I've had the chance to experience both sides, I can honestly come out and say the best side for us as a people is independent, and we vote for the best policy and stop voting for the popular person.
How do you convince people that not voting for the Democrats or criticizing, being extremely critical of the Democratic Party does not mean you default to Republican.
Right.
Because a lot of
Don't
times
do
they
that.
think just because
I
you
did
say
that.
something about
I
the
did
Democrats, you're automatically going to
I-
vote Republican, or you should be a Republican.
I did that, and even my oldest daughter, who's an attorney, she's a corporate lawyer. She lives in New York. Shout out to my baby Aaliyah. She told me, she said, "Mom, you don't want to be Republican. You want to be independent." She said, "Don't go Republican," and I didn't listen. But what I learned is that two-party system is two wings on the same bird. And again, it's partisan politics. Even in Congress, when they get ready to vote on a law, you have to have votes from both sides. All politics are supposed to be bipartisan. And I just believe the two-party system needs to be abolished. We all need to be independent, and we vote off of the person that has the best policies for our community.
Mm-hmm. A lot of the issue is Citizens United that allowed corporations to fund PACs.
Mm-hmm.
And when that happened, everything just shifted. It was like this, politicians who thought for themselves or spoke up or had dissenting opinions from the centralized party line were considered detractors.
Mm-hmm.
So today, if you're a Republican and you're not following this party line, and it's one thing if you vote one way, but it's another thing if you speak up.
Mm-hmm.
Let's say you guys are successful in your bid to win the White House. Everything is beautiful. It works out. You kill them. Let's say you get in there and you get 4 years, maybe even 8 years. How do you keep it going? How do you not fall victim to the same identity politics as the Republicans and the Democrats did?
Ooh.
We have to keep everyone around this pocket of independence, thinking about how to keep conflicts of interest out of the decision-making process. Conflicts of interest will happen anytime someone has a corporation that benefits from a policy. So we have to really screen these things out so that the people making the decisions aren't side-pocketing benefits. Bobby's entire platform is about ending corporate capture of our agencies. If you look across our federal agencies, Big Pharma owns all of our health care. Big Ag owns all of our agriculture. Big Tech, owns a lot. It's just like all of our information. It permeates into military. I mean, it's all of it. And then you have the entire industry of war. You have all of these companies that government contractors that are making billions of dollars off of our proxy wars. Mm-hmm. And that's going into the pockets, because of Citizens United, back into the pockets of the politicians. That's a cycle we're stuck in.
And just to speak to that point, what I noticed too, like with the Republican Party, most Republican congressmen and congresswomen are funded by the NRA. When you look at the Democrat Party, they're all funded by Planned Parenthood. So it is the interest of these big corporations, and they're being bought. I ran for office. I've been lobbied. I understand how it goes. It's the interest of these big corporations that take the voice away from the people. And I think how Nicole and Bobby keep up the momentum of this independent space is by bringing in people like me, like you, those of us who don't have the same political alignments, but we care about this country and we care about our community. Yeah. And that's how we win. Like, I think everybody's tired of fighting, right? Like, why am I getting attacked by my brothers and sisters on YouTube when even if they don't support Trump, but I'm in there freeing us from prison, right? But I just, we can't afford that anymore. We can't afford to be divided. We can't afford to be disconnected. We can't afford to be canceling each other. We really have to come together and do the work to not only save our country, but save our communities, which we've been doing, right? We do the work regardless if politics is in it or not. We need the help of politicians, but when they don't help us, who do the work? The grassroots organizers, right? The people like me that have the organizations in the community, helping the women and the babies. I lost to Nakima Williams, right? 5th District. She's sitting in office. She's done absolutely nothing for the 5th District of Georgia, but somehow I've managed to do more for that community without even having a seat. So at the end of the day, it's really up to the people.
But that's usually how it happens. The person that does the most is usually not in the greatest position of power. It's the activists that actually get more work. Activists get more work done than politicians do, and that's their job.
Right. It's like the behind-the-scenes ninjas.
Yeah.
Yeah. Look, I was a behind-the-scenes ninja, and now I'm out in front, and it's just like, getting hit by tomatoes every day from both parties, and sometimes tomatoes full of other stuff in them.
Yeah.
But it is. I will speak from somebody who's now a politician who was behind the scenes before. I did feel like I could, be more agile before, but there is something to be said for getting out there in front. I've had more opportunities to meet people doing the real work across the United States. So if you're coming from it from a place of integrity, it's very powerful to go into politics.
Yes.
Very, very powerful. I don't want anyone to not think that that is there. And if you can maintain that integrity each step of the way, like Bobby's dad and Bobby's uncle did, it can get quite dangerous for you, but what you can achieve for this country is worth it.
Yeah.
You know what? I like you. Like you're authentic. I'm very good at reading people. I mean, I'm really, really good.
Yes.
And hey, you come across as a very authentic person, and I actually trust you. Like, I trust that you're saying what you're saying is absolutely how you feel.
Yes.
Thank you.
The issue here is that your type is not wanted. Good people, authentic people in Congress, they just don't really get too far. They end up acquiescing to, the demands of their colleagues, and they say, hey, I know you want to do this, but we got to do it like this. How do you plan to maintain that moral compass and not
because I'm going to jump on them as soon as they mess with her and get in the run.
There's truth to that, though. Let's talk about that. You need to align yourself with people that disagree with you from time to time, and that will hold you accountable.
Yep.
And, it's been a benefit to be able to self-finance because I haven't had to go spend my time with people to fund our campaign. I mean, I might pop into something here and there and say hello, but, it doesn't hurt me either way if you fund me or the other campaigns. I'm not offended. I'll still like you, right? And so to align oneself with people that are going to hold you accountable is really important. And it's that laser vision like Angela has, that I have, many people around me. It's this laser vision of seeing when you're going off, right? And they call you out on it immediately. And it's the grace in that moment. Bobby has a lot of those people around him too. I'll tell you, this campaign.
Yes.
I don't know how he does it.
Yes.
Yeah, I could tell. I never met him, but I feel that Kennedy energy. You know what I mean? Like he got that.
That's
he got
what I love
that.
about
He's very relatable, down to earth. Like, here's the deal. Like, how are you guys going to get past this piece right here? So Americans. We're used to the two-party system, and we don't want to throw our vote away. And we ain't had an independent, candidate, emerge as president in history.
Well, George Washington was the first independent president, so Bobby is going to be the second.
Okay, so Bobby will be the second. But how do you get to that point for Bobby to be the second when you got so many Americans that's saying that, okay, yeah, we're tired of this, but I don't want my vote to go to waste. Plus, how much money do you think is going to take y'all to win this campaign? Because it costs a lot of money to run a presidential campaign. And people are saying that they are discontent. People are saying that they're angry. They want change. But will they vote with their pocketbooks?
70% of Americans aren't excited or don't want to vote for Biden or Trump. They've seen what those presidencies look like. They're not excited about these options. So this, if Bobby pulls out, it will be a record number of people not voting for a president in this election. So Bobby's got to stay in for the very sake of people continuing to have faith in our democracy. Technically, Bobby can win. He can get to 270 electoral college votes and win this whole thing in November. And we've seen it. We have technologists. We've looked at the numbers. It is so within reach. What I would say to the American public in this moment is that how do you feel when you are mean, or hateful or full of hate and lacking of hope? It doesn't feel good. And what does it feel like to be heard and seen? I'm not saying, that this campaign is perfect. But I will say that this campaign will hear and it will listen and it will see. That is the kind of leadership Bobby exudes. It's the legacy of his family. He's not bought out.
That's the main thing.
That's the number one thing. He's not been bought out. He won't be bought out. He's taking on every single agency we have head on right now to make sure that those agencies are no longer bought out. Nobody's doing that. No candidate's doing that. And he's putting it all on the line to do this.
Without Secret Service.
Oh, yeah, and without any Secret Service. They've
So what kind of service is he getting secretly?
Well, they're funding their own security. I mean, Joe Biden has denied him Secret Service.
What?
5 times.
5 times.
Joe Biden?
Knowing what has happened to his family.
Wow.
And Secret Service was actually put in place because of the murder of his uncle as a president. And they are denying Bobby Secret Service protection. And even with his affiliation with the King family. So you got a King and a Kennedy on the stage oftentimes together at the same time with no Secret Service protection whatsoever. But that just goes to show you how determined he is and how determined I am to stand beside him to say that this is what America needs, this is what my community needs. I need politicians that I can bring to my community that's not going to come in telling us what we need to do. Sit down, listen, hear from the people. Let us tell you what we believe works since we're in this community and we're doing the work without you. Hear what we're saying. When they're willing to come to our communities, listen to what we say, and then take what we say and implement it into policy, those are the people that we have to get behind because the way that they've been doing it hasn't been working. So why not hear from the people?
Listen up, Joe. Listen up. You listen up, you old. Get that man some security, man. Get that man security detail. You wrong as 2 left shoes, man. And this is why people are so discontent with your administration, with you. You're totally disconnected, bro. You've lost it, man. You out of your mind to make a call like that. I don't know who's out there advising you. Perhaps you're talking to your dog who always biting on people and stuff. I don't know what you're doing over there, man. But you need to change it up, man. That ain't cool. That ain't cool at all. What you scared of? If you're doing what you're supposed to be doing, you shouldn't have no fear. You shouldn't be worried about what's happening, over there, over here. You should just stay in your lane and do what you do. I mean, to provide security to Mr. Robert Kennedy Jr. Look, fam, that's the least that you're supposed to do as the so-called protector of the free world. Charity starts at home. You got to get that man security because if something happens to him, it's on you, bro. Understand that. That just makes me even more determined not to ride for that dude. Like, I'm not with that. I'm rolling with the Kennedy campaign. I'm Kennedy 24, man. I'm Kennedy 24. I
That's
don't care
what we
y'all say.
doing.
I don't care what y'all say.
Wow.
I'm Kennedy 24.
Yep.
Independent.
That's what we doing. Yep.
You know, one of your other platforms that you have is clean air and water and food. That's a big deal. They putting chemicals in our water supply and our food supply. You know, most of the food that we consume in America is banned in overseas countries. How do you plan to resolve that?
You know, I remember when the water started tasting different in Oakland. Sometime in the late 90s, you could taste there was something in the water that didn't make it feel clean and refreshing anymore. The reality is across this United States, you run water out of your tap, you're going to have PFAS. These are forever chemicals in the water. You're going to have trace residue of pesticides from spraying of our crops. You're going to have fluoride and sometimes chlorine, which we know impacts brain development. And none of this makes any sense. It to the point where it almost sometimes feels either grossly negligent or somehow intentional. And there's zero excuse for it. If you talk about the function of government, we think about water as like the most basic public good. If your government cannot provide you clean water out of your tap, that is the clearest failure of what their job is. Is their job supposed to be sending $200 billion overseas to fight proxy wars while you can't drink your tap water? So what we're going to do about it is we're going to make that a priority over sending our taxpayer dollars overseas to fight proxy wars. We're going to make sure that our agricultural systems, our agricultural agencies are not captured by the chemical companies that are making our farmers addicted to these pesticides and herbicides that make us sick. We know that glyphosate, for example, causes all kinds of cancers. You know, Bayer, who owns Roundup, which is glyphosate, has been sued so many times.
Bayer owns Roundup? Wow. Wow. Did y'all hear that, fam? Bayer Pharmaceutical. Bayer Pharmaceuticals owns Roundup, a pesticide. What irony.
I mean, doesn't it
that
make
we're finding pesticides in our foods, and Bayer has the cure.
Doesn't it make sense though that they make money off of pushing illness? Because if it really truly cured you, right, then would they be able to make money off of the medication?
Well, I misspoke. So they don't cure you; they treat you. They treat the symptoms.
And it's for life.
Because the money is in the medicine, not the cure.
We got to clean out these corporations from our government.
Y'all got a tall task ahead of you, but I believe in you guys. But I'm telling you, you know, and y'all already know this. I'm telling Noah about the ark. Y'all, you got please. I help you do security, man. I handle them
You
too.
gonna roll with us?
I ride with you. I ride on that security because the first one get out of line. Like I see anything, first one get out of line, they gonna get it. That's
how I am.
They
I'm
gonna
security,
get it.
Consultant, auntie, whatever I need to be.
Speaking of auntie, let's talk. Let's talk about
talk about
Auntie Angie's house.
Oh gosh,
what's going on with that?
That's my heart and joy.
Yeah.
From my own personal story, because I was that woman that came home. I was released from prison with a $25 check and a bus ticket and told to go start my life over. After giving birth to my daughter, chained to a bed with the sheriff watching, she was taken from me 24 hours later. She was given to my mother. 6 months after her birth, my mother died of a massive heart attack. She was given to my grandmother. 6 months after my mother died, my grandmother died. And then I came home 6 months later with nowhere to go. I came home to 3 garbage bags of clothes and 4 children that were waiting for me. I was a convicted felon. I couldn't get welfare. I couldn't get Section 8. I couldn't get a job. I'm being pushed around from shelter to shelter until I finally maxed out. And that was kind of when I began my journey switching from kind of like Democrat policies because I realized that welfare was something that kept us stuck. It wasn't until I couldn't receive welfare that I actually found my way to becoming financially free by starting my own business. I was no longer up under their system. But with the overturning of Roe v. Wade, I knew that there were going to be more babies being born. I also knew that during this time that we were now facing a Black maternal health crisis, to me was something I couldn't understand because I'm from the days of Big Mama. My grandmother had 10 children in a shed, right? And all of them were healthy and all of them were born alive. So when I looked on the White House.gov and I saw that they said Black women were dying 3 times likely compared to white women, regardless of income or education, my common sense kicked in because I said, wait a minute, like that's almost like saying all the black cows are dying or all the black horses are dying or, all the how all the black dogs are dying, like just to say that I'm going to die because I'm Black when birth is the most natural thing on this planet. Everyone got here because someone birthed them. So I said, okay, if we have a Black maternal health crisis, what is the solution to the Black maternal health crisis? And the only thing I started seeing was abortion, abortion, abortion. So I said, well, if the Black mother is dying giving birth to the baby, and then the Black baby is dying during the abortion process, then that means Black lives don't matter at all. What can I do to change this situation? We need to get back to natural birthing methods. If Black women are dying, and this is my belief, I'm speaking for me, if Black women are dying in a hospital giving birth, I believe that it's something more sinister happening because birth is just so natural. And I've done the studies and I looked to see that doctors make $30,000 more when they perform a C-section. I don't think there's anything normal about a woman being cut in half to deliver a baby. But that's my own personal opinion. So Auntie Angie's House was born. And Auntie Angie's House specifically was created to eradicate the Black maternal health crisis by helping people understand that choosing to keep the baby is also a choice. So I wanted to, because 80% of abortion clinics are in Black communities, I wanted to put a life resource center there. So say, for instance, if you're hungry and you go to the corner, you want something to eat, you have a choice. You got McDonald's or you got Wendy's. There's always a choice. But in our communities, we get abortion clinics, and in their communities, they get fertility clinics. So I wanted to have an Auntie Angie's House everywhere that there was a Planned Parenthood, and I wanted Black women to know that they have a life resource in their community that they can go to for help, they can go to for support, they can go through for housing, they can go through for counseling, they can go to for food, they can go to for diapers. So we're kind of a one-stop shop to help mothers just all the way get on their feet. We train them to work directly from their computers so we can rule out the issues of child care. The mother-baby bonding period to me is so very important because my baby was taken from me. They're only babies for 2 years. And then they're up and they're grown and they're gone and time never turns back. They just keep growing after that. And I wanted to make sure that once they leave Auntie Angie's house, that they're always in a position to be able to make money, to be able to provide for themselves and be able to provide for their children. So Auntie Angie's House was created, and I've created several organizations, but Auntie Angie's House has been one of the hardest fields for me to be in because I believe that, it's just really an attack against life. And the work that I do comes with a lot of scrutiny from both sides. I'm up against a lot of powerful Black women that believe there's liberation in abortion. I believe that there's liberation in birthing our children. So I've been kind of labeled as the enemy, for fighting for these babies and fighting for these mothers, but I'm not going to stop. So Auntie Angie's House is there. Thankfully, Bobby gave me this opportunity to be able to work on his campaign, which has helped us spread the word more about the work that we're doing at Auntie Angie's House. It's also been able to give him a better understanding and Nicole a better understanding of the need to support, women that choose life. There is nothing more rewarding than saving a life and changing a life at the same time. And that's what we do. And I'm not going to stop. I don't care how hard it gets. But I find liberation in saving Black life.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. Nicole, talk about Be a Echo.
Calling it a philanthropy doesn't I feel is the right label. It's, in America, we think about our donation dollars as taking on these high risk but very valuable things. And that's how I've gone into it. That's how I've thought about my giving. My first area of giving was criminal justice reform starting in 2015, and it's evolved a lot. And where it is now is really this understanding that the criminal justice system is and always will be built on this intense ruthlessness of the American psyche, which is what I said earlier. So yes, I'll continue to try to change that through policy and through this race. But what I really want to work on and what I have been working on is, what heals communities is the same across the board. It's access to parks, nature, fun, joy, safety. It's access to food that nourishes us. It's access to soil that nourishes us. So one of my greatest partnerships is with Shirley Sherrod from Albany, Georgia, married to Charles Sherrod, who recently passed. And these were members of the civil rights movement. And Shirley is amazing because she represents what happens when people in America can own farmland and nourish their communities directly, nourish the bellies of their communities. And so I've been working to help expand programs. I've been working on policy to make sure that all Americans can own farmland and feed their communities. We know that good nutrition makes for healthy babies, healthy mamas. And we know that all the food deserts in this country are in low-income communities and underserved communities. So accessing just the nutrition we all need to be strong is harder in communities of color, and it shouldn't be that way. So my foundation's been working in that. And then maternal health. I'm the largest funder in women's reproductive health. But I think that women's reproductive health has to do with environmental factors. Again, food, water, clean air, homes, safety, lack of chemicals in the environment. So did you know that the ovaries are like the least researched organ? All of our understanding of science around heart and brain, about 70 years more research. So, like, if you were to compare relatively, like, in terms of, how much literature has been contributed to understanding the function of the heart and brain, it would be here. Relative to that, ovaries is maybe one less than, 0.1%. Women have been neglected scientifically for ever. In fact, if you look at research on mouse models in labs, we haven't even done research on female mice up until just, 10, 20 years. And that's because female mice were considered more complicated to collect data on. And so what I've been focusing on is understanding maternal health through investing in foundational sciences. And I will tell you, being in Silicon Valley and being a technologist that says, let's not lab engineer reproductive health, but let's actually understand natural health and understand how to improve and understand the deep scientific pathways of organic human health versus engineering it in a lab. And, they're building artificial wombs in Europe right now. They're trying to create fetuses out of stem cells in labs. This is kind of the darkness that I see happening right now around women's reproduction. And there's not a lot. It's a lonely space to be a donor in the field whose narrative is, let's make sure women can be healthy enough to have babies organically longer. Let's not push 22-year-olds to go freeze their eggs. Let's push 22-year-olds to live vibrant, healthy lives so that when they're 41, they can have a healthy baby without intervention.
Yeah.
And it's lonely out there doing that kind of work, but it's what everybody wants at the end of the day.
Right.
Yeah, I personally I think that America overall have a low opinion about protecting women. I mean, I just see it from, I read a report that over 90% of rape kits in evidence rooms go untested in the U.S. That don't tell me that this is a nation that's serious about protecting women. That just does not tell me. The data does not add up. The math ain't mathing.
Women are being erased right now, and I'm going to say this from a personal perspective. We're seeing, sports being impacted, sports that were created just for women. We're seeing, the word, mother being removed from the dictionary and being replaced with birthing people. We're seeing breastfeeding being removed from the dictionary and being replaced with chest feeding. Like, we got some real serious work that we need to do in America, in this country. And I guess I'm a woman. I was a woman before I became a mother.
A lot of men are responsible for this, but also women are responsible too. A lot of women are too, because, damn near half of women in this country voted for Donald Trump. And this is after the rape allegations. This is after the accusations and all that kind of stuff. And then when you look at how women overall just treated, in this country, a lot of it comes down to how women kind of like roll over when things happen that adversely affect them. For example, something like when Bruce Jenner was named Woman of the Year, women accepted that. A lot of women though. A lot of women. There was not a big, huge uproar about that.
That's the evil people in power you talking about.
Women kind of just laid down and let that happen. How in the hell does a man become Woman of the Year in one of the most prestigious magazines in the country, Time Magazine, and women let them get away with that? I did not see a big uproar about that. Women let them get away with that.
Well, I'm still fighting against that right now, and it's personal for me because I have a son that transitioned, and I went up under a lot of attack for refusing to identify my son as a woman. And what I realized was America is so opinion-based, and everybody wants to get along, go along to get along, and nobody is willing to stand on truth. And I've been crucified for just standing on truth as a mother, taking on very big platforms like Hollywood Unlocked, Dr. Phil, basically being belittled because as the one person that gave birth to this person. Like, I'm cool with everybody having an opinion, but I'm the one person that carried this child and gave birth, and I knew he had a penis before he did, right? I'm the one that taught him how to use it, how to hold it, how to pee straight, all of that. And to be attacked because as a parent, you want to tell your child the truth. Yeah, you have a right to live your life however you want to, but don't believe the lies so much that you walk into a clinic and allow yourself to be castrated. Then I'm the bad guy.
Is that what happened?
No, that's not what happened because mama stood on business. But had I folded, right, to what we call societal norms, right, and fell into agreement, then that would have happened. People were expecting me to literally hold his hand and walk him into the clinic and wait for him to be castrated. And I think that the direction this country is going into, where a mother does not have a right to protect her child, where a father does not have the right to say, I don't want her to abort the baby, I'll take the baby, then we're just getting into a very, very dangerous, I guess, place, because if the parents don't have the right to protect the children, then the children will never be protected.
How does your son, How do you refer to your son?
My son.
You said, did he get offended when you say that?
Not from me. We've had this conversation, and anybody that wants to refer to him however they want to, that's fine. But for me, I can't. I'm not at a place where I can live in that because I know the truth. And I think that as his parent, the minute that I agree to it or I condone it or I step into it, then I lose all hope of him ever coming back to that moment of truth. And I think my message to him is that it is perfectly okay for you to be a gay man if that's what you want. There are a lot of gay men that have female personalities, but your personality does not determine your sex.
And
so because you have a feminine
female personalities
true. So because you have a feminine personality, that doesn't mean that you're born in the wrong body. So I had to go to school. I had to go get my psychology degree. I had to begin to understand gender dysphoria. I had to check myself spiritually, and I had to check my heart, right? Because people were trying to make it seem as if I didn't love my child, and I knew that I loved them. But their love was based off of just going along with everyone else says. And my love is based off of the fact that I want you to keep everything that you were born with. Live your life how you want, but don't live in delusion.
Speaking of delusion, and speaking of truth, Nicole, what was your reaction when you heard about the news that Robert Kennedy Jr. said that a worm died in his brain?
Oh.
And he said he'll eat 7 more worms
and
still debate Trump.
No, he said he'd eat 5.
And he thinks the outcome would be
5
great.
more brain worms and still beat Trump and Biden in a debate. Yeah.
I mean, doesn't that just go to show you how ridiculous, like, politics and media have become? But it took, I mean, that article spread like wildfire. And if you look at the timing for that article, keep in mind that our campaign had just released probably one of the most significant documentaries about a presidential candidate ever, called Who is Bobby? And it was taking off all over the web. In just a day or two, you know, there was 60 million views. And if we were trending, there was going to be over 100 million views. And it was catching fire. And the media, they had censored, so Meta had censored this video, and we were like, really, we're taking a stand where the campaign is you know, taking a real stand against Meta censoring that video, because it is the most important video for this campaign, because we've got to overcome all of these attacks, these ridiculous lies about who Bobby Kennedy is, and this video was working. And then the next thing we know, we wake up to this like brain worm article. And if you look at the source of it, it makes no sense at all. It has not impacted his cognition. It was something that had come up like decades ago, is so irrelevant. Yeah. And it's something that a court sleuth, found him say in this random deposition. He was like, well, I don't know. I may have forgotten this because, I don't know, like at one point I had maybe a brain parasite but honestly, that's irrelevant, and this is irrelevant. And when you look at it in context of what he was saying and how it was taken out of context to create this headline, is so ridiculous. And you can tell that the only reason this was done was to take attention off of the Who is Bobby Kennedy documentary that was catching fire everywhere. And then the second narrative they're trying to silence, I think, is the fact that that video is being censored today on these platforms, and there's nothing in it that should be censored. So we have to look at these headlines within the context of like what's really going on here, and I think Bobby did a great job with it, turning it into an opportunity. He did a
really great job, and I think one of the things I'm gonna do is enforce that they look at Section 230 too. because we're all being impacted by that when people are just allowed to put out anything. Even journalists aren't being held to being credible anymore. They can just release any type of story. And I know that you have loved this interview with Nicole. She has gone 30 minutes over.
Yeah, no,
I know. Oh, yeah, here 30 minutes.
Wait a minute. What time is it? Oh.
It's 5 o'clock. We've been rolling.
Wow.
I know it's been a great conversation, but my VP has to hit the road.
Okay, before you go, I did want to ask you this. Are you still a fan of Talking Heads? You still listen to Talking Heads?
Of course, yeah.
Yeah, what's your favorite song?
This Must Be the Place.
This must be the place. Yeah, I thought you would have said burning down the house since you're trying to burn down the White House and start it back up.
Burning down. I mean, that's got to be a close number 2. Yeah.
Man, y'all not fans of Talking Heads? Man, Talking Heads be jamming.
I'm a Willie D fan.
Yeah.
So I'm a Ghetto Boys fan. So
I'm
definitely gonna be playing some Willie D in the car
Nicole,
tonight.
She already up on it.
You on it?
She grew up in Oakland. Nicole is from the hood.
Oh,
that's what people don't understand.
There it is.
I try to explain, but I'm like, I'll just show through my actions that I get it. But
Well, it's been a great conversation. I didn't know it a whole hour and a half had passed that fast, but I do appreciate you coming by. Appreciate you, Angela, for coming by also, and I'm hoping for the best for your campaign. I'm with you. Perfect. Let me know if you need me.
I will. We do need you. And I am going to call you. You're going to help us make things much easier. And that's why I'm bringing them to our community, because I don't want y'all to hear it from me. I want y'all to hear from them. And when they come in your presence, and this has been across the board with everybody, when you're able to read them for yourselves, ask your own questions, listen, add your own insight, you know that this is the party that we need to go with, and these are the people that we need to go get behind. I'm never going for the fact that someone told us, if you don't vote for me, you ain't black. That was the most disrespectful thing ever to our community, and a lot of us are waking up. And this is the unity ticket. We are here to heal the divide, and everybody is welcome.
Mm-hmm.
Nicole Shanahan, Angela King, no more talk.